morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the live webinar with Reyna Silver and Infinitum Copper. And today we will be discussing on why high-grade and district scale is the key to a greener future. My name is Adina, and I'm a director at Emerging Markets Capital that is hosting this event. Just a little bit about our company. Emerging Markets Capital is a private mining investment firm. We're based in Hong Kong, and we're an early investor in both Reyna Silver and Infinitum Copper. Just a short disclaimer to remind you that this webinar for informational purposes only. Well, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Reyna Silver. It's a silver exploration company with a robust portfolio of silver assets in Mexico and the US. And the company's strategy is to explore projects that have the potential for high-grade and district-scale discoveries. And then next, Infinitum Copper is a copper exploration company focusing on exploring the highly prospective Adelita Copper Project in Sonora State in Mexico. So our speakers today will discuss our main topic on why copper and silver is a key to a greener future, and also share the company updates and the plans for this year. So meet the speakers. We have, first of all, Dr. Peter McGaugh. He's the Chief Technical Advisor for Reyna Silver and a Senior Technical Advisor for Infinitum Copper. He's a co-founder of Mag Silver with over 40 years of experience in the Mexican geology, and he's well known in the Mexican mining industry. His team was credited with the significant discoveries at Platosa, Juanicipio Fresnillo, and Cinco de Mayo. He's a recipient of 2017 PDAC Thayer Linsley Award. And next, Jorge Ramiro Monroy. He's the CEO of Reyna Silver with over 10 years of experience of investing in the mining sector. He's a former director of Prime Mining and currently serves on board of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. He holds a bachelor's degree from the State University of New York and an MBA degree in finance from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And from Infinitum Copper, we have Steve Robertson. He's a CEO, a geologist with over 30 years of experience in exploration, mining operations, and executive roles in mining. He worked for 24 years at Imperial Metals, where he was responsible for the Red Chris exploration. In 2017, he became the founding CEO of Sun Metals, discovering a copper gold skarn in British Columbia. He holds a bachelor's degree in geology from the University of Alberta. So first, we will hear the presentation of Reyna Silver. Next, we will move to Infinitum Copper. I encourage you to ask any questions you might have, and please leave them in the Q&A box, or you can drop me an email as well to adina@emercap.com. So with this, let's move to Reyna Silver presentation.
Great, thank you very much, Adina, and again, a pleasure to be with many of you. I see everybody's name who's logged in here, and I do recognize a lot of you. So really a pleasure to be with you all. We were talking before everybody signed up about what a crazy time in history we're living right now. Everything that has happened over the last month, something that we weren't counting on necessarily, this situation in Russia, incredibly unfortunate, and all the effects that is having on commodities. I think there's a lot of very interesting discussions to be had. Adina, who organized this webinar for us, had the idea of discussing a little bit about how copper and silver and the role they play to renewable energies, and a little bit of the trends of where things are moving towards. I think this movement had started already a while ago, but I think now with oil prices as high as they are now and potentially for the foreseeable future, we do believe that those trends are going to be accelerated further. And we realize that our companies play an important role in all of those events. Also a pleasure to be here today with Steve Robertson and Peter McGaugh. We also have Lauren McGaugh, who's Peter's daughter, with us, and Lauren just recently joined us as part of the team at Reyna Silver, helping us with investor relations, and really as we advance and progress on our exploration, having somebody who kind of help us articulate the progress we're making in exploration. So she's been great to have. We also wanted to congratulate Steve Robertson and the team at Infinitum Copper, who are just received their approval for going public. Yay, Steve. They'll be going public on tomorrow, Wednesday, which is very exciting. We started Infinitum Copper a couple of years ago, and again, with this relationship that we've developed with Peter, with an asset that Peter and his team in Mexico had generated, and again, with the same philosophy of exploration and the same enthusiasm for discoveries, we're very excited to be sharing this presentation with you all. So I'll start and let you know that I'll be making forward-looking statements, and please do your own research. I think most of you are already familiar with Reyna Silver, but just in case some of you are new to the company, the focus of the company is on high-quality assets that have district scale and that also have high-grade silver. So the basis of all our projects is either former producers that already had the high-grade silver potential proven, or they're adjacent to mines that were or are high-grade silver producers and have that potential. When we were reflecting as to why silver, plays an important role in this so-called green revolution, of course, there's the obvious, point that we discussed as we were waiting to start the call, and the vital role that silver plays in electric vehicles. I was mentioning how silver utilizes a lot more silver than internal combustion vehicles. Solar panels, it has been an application for which silver demand has increased year after year. But there's another element that doesn't often get discussed, and that is, how the focus on high-grade silver and district scale, it does play a very fundamental role in the way that we try to make mining more sustainable. If you look at the difference that it takes, when right now the average grade of production for silver around the world is about 100 grams per ton silver. So, when you look for silver that's more in the neighborhood of, Peter always likes to talk about 350 grams per ton silver as, what you would consider as high-grade silver. When you focus on size and grade, the amount of rock that you have to move is dramatically. Electricity and moving material is by far the elements that consume the most energy. So that is one of the elements that we wanted to highlight, how important it is to do this kind of exploration going forward. As you know, it's becoming harder and harder to find high-grade deposits. It takes a lot of work, and it really is something that you can't just do overnight. It takes tremendous effort. And talking about the second point that you see here in the screen, exceptional team. Peter and his team in Mexico have made a lifelong career of focusing on the kind of exploration that can create a multi-generational mine. And we wanted to make those points as to keep in line with the theme of the webinar. Now, in terms of giving you a little bit of an overview of the company and where we are, we have three main projects: GuiGui, Batopilas, and Medicine Springs. GuiGui and Batopilas are two projects that came from MAG Silver, and even before MAG Silver, we acquired those in 2018, but these projects were really put together as district scale projects by Peter in the years prior to MAG Silver going public, and we took them over in 2018. Since then, we have put together the funding to complete stage 1 of drilling at GuiGui in late last year, and we've now completed phase 2 of drilling, which was 8,000 additional meters. So we've drilled a total of 20,000 meters. And this stage 2 of drilling, we have now completed it, waiting just for the final assays, and as soon as those are in hand, you can watch out for a press release. Batopilas, we have a historic mine that, historically was Mexico's largest producer, and we've put in the initial drill results last year, and we're also in the process of getting the last few drill results so that we can communicate to the market the results of our drilling campaign there. And in 2020, we will be doing at least another 5,000 meters at the very least, but potentially a lot more than that. And then finally, at Medicine Springs, a project that we acquired after Reyna Silver went public. We recognized it as a project that has all the hallmarks of a district scale TRD project. We've spent 2021 making sure that we had the entire district, and we've now in the advanced stages of getting it ready for a phase 1 drilling that we hope to do towards the end of 2022. A little bit of a snapshot of our capital structure. We have 100 million shares outstanding. We have, as of last quarter, 11 million Canadian. We're spending about $1 million a month, so that cash position is not exactly as of last quarter, but we still are well funded to complete all our drilling that we have planned for 2000. You can see that we have a lot of significant shareholders in the company. Peter, Adina gave a wonderful introduction to him at the beginning of the webinar, so I won't touch too much on that. And I will just mention perhaps Doug Kerwin, who's one of our technical advisors and one of our original investors, and somebody that we're very happy to have as part of our technical advisory board. Now, with that, I'd like to pass it to Peter, walk us through GuiGui, Batopilas, and Medicine Springs, and a little bit of what the thinking, the exploration behind each of the project is. So, Peter, very good to see you, and I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Jorge, and good morning, everybody. Apologize in advance for being masked with a little road noise. I'm in an Uber in Southern California and headed home, so I'll do my best to speak up so you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine, just so that you know, Peter.
Okay, great. So the GuiGui Project is in the famous Santa Eulalia district, which is in Chihuahua, Mexico. It's actually the reason the city of Chihuahua exists. It's produced over 50 million tons of ore at approximately 10-ounce silver and 15% combined lead and zinc. So that makes it a 500 million ounce plus silver deposit. And if that wasn't enough, the geology and years of work in the district tells us that half of the system remains to be found. So let's move to the next slide and get a bit of an idea of what that means. So as I said, I've been working there for a long time. I did my thesis there back in the 80s, finished up in the 90s. We worked on it for Mag Silver during the 2000s. It was essentially a victim of Mag's success at Juanicipio when it became available for Jorge when he decided he wanted to put Reyna together. In 2020, we acquired La Chinche, which is a chunk of adjoining property to consolidate the land package, and we are currently actively exploring. And as Jorge mentioned, we're waiting for the drill results for the last part of phase 1 drilling. So this is what I mean when we're talking about half of the system missing. Carbonate replacement systems are associated with an intrusion, and immediately around that intrusion you get high temperature, what's called Skarn alteration, and then that's overprinted by sulfides, which affect the Skarn, but they also affect the limestones, working in some cases as much as 8 or 9 kilometers away from the intrusive source. That gets you into those what are called mantos and chimneys, chimneys being just big vertical pipes of massive sulfide, mantos being sheets or ribbons of massive sulfides. And the historic production of the district at 500 million ounces of silver came from exclusively chimneys and mantos, so that distal right-hand side of the diagram. What we're looking for is the intrusive center, and then the skarn mineralization around it. So that has been the focus of our phase 1 exploration. Next. So here's another way of looking at it. There's the historically produced part of the district off to the left, the chimneys and mantos, and we're looking for that intrusive center with the skarn associated with it. The area is covered by pre-mineral volcanics. So they're altered, and they've got bleeders that have come up from the mineralization underneath, but we're essentially exploring blind through that altered volcanic cover, trying to get that intrusion located so we then can look for mineralization around it, and so we can look for additional high-grade replacement mineralization associated with it. Almost none of these systems only have one spoke to the wheel or one finger on the hand. And so we think there's good potential for both proximal mineralization and additional high-grade replacements. Next, please. So here's a snapshot of our property position. The historic mines that I just showed you are that cluster of mines up to the left hand, the upper left or center, Buena Tierra and Potosi. The blue is our property package. The red are historic drill holes by Mag Silver, and the green are the holes we put in phase one. So we're trying to locate that intrusive center, and our drilling has focused most recently in that upper right-hand portion of the system after our hole 28 hit mineralization and alteration that can be described as being very close to the center, but we haven't quite reached the center yet. Next, please. So here's a view of that upper right-hand part of the section and a cross-section through the area of mineralization showing holes 28 and several others, 28 being the best hole. What we found was 50 meters of skarn alteration affecting an intrusive rock. And then the bottom 15 meters of that was exceptionally well mineralized. There was mineralization through the whole 50 meters, but the bottom 15 was the best. And there were individual zones within it that were high in silver, high in copper in 2 zones with slightly different mineralogy that were higher in zinc. This is telling us this was a multi-phase system, which we already knew, but that's good to have confirmatory evidence of that in your drilling. Next, please. So here's the results from hole 28, and you can see as you look down the silver, we had one intercept that ran 185 grams silver, essentially, with an internal zone within it that ran 520, so half a kilogram of silver, with zinc grades up to 11%, copper up to 1.4%. Again, this is not, we don't think this is quite in the center of the system yet, but this is nice stuff to be able to track back into the center of the system. Just a view of what some of that alteration looks like. The green that you see there is the calc-silicate skarn alteration. And then the blue and the black looking stuff that you see there is very high grade silver mineralization, clearly cutting across that earlier stage of skarn alteration. An example of the sphalerite mineralization, the high zinc, you can see massive, very coarse grained sphalerite. That's the principal zinc sulfide mineral. And that's very important to see how coarse grained it is, because coarse grained material like this is much easier to beneficiate than fine grained mineralization. So metallurgists love this stuff. Okay, so moving to Batopilas. This is 1 month's production from the Batopilas mines back in 1906. That's 350,000 ounces of silver you see there at 25 kilogram bars. Batopilas is the highest grade silver deposit ever found in Mexico. The average grade from 1882 to 1913 was 2% silver. The ore bodies were essentially Brillo pads of crystallized native silver. Overall, since the Spanish historical colonial era, the district's had over 300 million ounces of silver production. So as we see here, mining started in 1632. Spanish era continued until the mid 1800s. The Batopilas Mining Company, which was a New York financed company that consolidated the district in 1880 and operated until 1913, basically came in the surface working underneath the surface workings that the Spaniards had worked. So they found it an outcrop and worked it down. Batopilas Mining Company came in at the river level of the tunnel and mined up from there. They got shut down by the Mexican Revolution, and the mine basically stayed closed till today. We picked up the property back in the 90s. It was one of the 3 properties we started Mag Silver with. Again, Reyna picked it up in 2018, and we are currently exploring in the process of our phase 1 drilling program there. So there's an example on the left of the native silver, which is typical of the ore bodies in the district. On the right, you can see a series of veins that were historically produced. That long, straight tunnel with the strong, straight red line with the dog leg in it, that's the tunnel that came in underneath those veins. And what we've done is essentially project those structures to the north. We went up there, we did some surface trenching, found native silver in outcrop, and then just recognized and mapped a series of structures and have continued to drill underneath those structures has been the principal focus of our phase 1. And one of the things we're finding is we're getting some good silver grades, but more surprisingly, for the first time ever in this district, we're starting to get a zone of consistent gold mineralization. That cluster of holes The green dots that you can see in the upper right-hand corner, some of those are coming in with some very attractive gold numbers and silver. So here's a close-up view. There's the Porfirio Diaz tunnel there at the bottom. The veins that we've projected to the northeast. You can see the location of the drilling to date. And the holes, again, in the upper right-hand corner are the ones coming in with good gold. And that's up to the high 20s of grams per ton gold. And one of the holes hit some pretty high-grade silver up to, I think, 10 kilograms. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time reading. 4 kilograms of silver. I'm sorry, again, 40 kilograms of silver. So essentially native silver showing up nicely in the core. The ore bodies pinch and swell, and they only have about 35 to 50 meters of extent on level. So essentially what you do is follow these narrow silver-bearing veins, and then they open up very abruptly from a centimeter to 2 meters, continue along, and then they close down again. But they have 350 meters or up to 350 meters of vertical extent to the ore body. So you have to zero in on these things and then start to track them vertically. So what we're doing at this stage, while we're waiting for the slide to advance, there we go. This just shows you some of the results that we've released so far. You can see some pretty nice gold numbers there, 3 to about 28 grams gold. Silver 700, 10,000. This is the kind of numbers we like to see in this district. But what we're doing is we're testing a number of structures, trying to figure out which are the best ones to continue with, get ourselves focused. What we've recognized is that the gold and silver are probably from separate sources, but they're using the same plumbing. So we're trying to find essentially 2 separate mineralization centers in this system. Just an example of what that core looks like on the right-hand side. That's the calcite laced with native silver that gave us the 10,000 gram sample. Next, please. And I'm only speaking quickly here because the story today is really about Infinitum, and I don't want to take up too much of Steve's time. So the last project we have with Reyna is Medicine Springs. This is in central Nevada, just off the Garland Trends at the southeast of Elko. It's a historic district in the sense that it has some small mines on it, but we think we're looking at the very fringe of this system. So unlike Sadiolalia, where they've had 300 years of mining, we think we're right out on the very tip of the system, and we're trying to make it bigger. And from what we're seeing so far, it ticks all the boxes that we're looking for in early stages of CRD exploration. So here's our model again. You saw this already with Sadiolalia. But what we're looking for, what we're working with for Medicine Springs is way up there in the upper right-hand corner. So we know we're Main Street as far as being in a CRD belt is concerned. We can see multiple stages of mineralization. That tells us it's a multi-stage, long-lived system. It's at the top of the carbonate section. That means it's got a lot of room to grow. We're seeing a lot of what we call mineralized exhaust features. So this is where the spent ore fluids came out and caused alteration. Most of what we're seeing at the set of concerns is jasperoid and very large scale fauna. Again, telling us that it's a large district, and historic drilling and sampling shows well over 400 grams silver. So here's the results of the jasperoid sampling that we did last year. So it took 800 or 900 samples of jasperoids. Jasperoid is just silica that is the residual ore fluid that traps metals. And we sampled these systematically. These are the only ones that we're seeing are the ones that had significant value. So we started at an area about 10 by 10 kilometers. We took all these samples. We narrowed it down to this area that's about 2 by 5 kilometers. Very strong structural control in this area. And we see strong anomalies in copper, zinc, lead, and silver, and they're zoned with copper there in the upper right-hand corner, and then working our way to the southwest, where we get into more lead, zinc, and silver, which is exactly the kind of zoning we want to see. So this helps us identify the structures we want to drill, tells us that they're worth drilling, and gets us set to start planning drilling program for drilling this coming fall. So the catalysts for Reyna Silver will be upcoming press releases from GuiGui and Batopilas, and then word that we have our drill program set up at Medicine Springs. My Uber has arrived at my airport, and I'm going to turn it back to Jorge to talk a little bit more about the business aspects, and then Steve. So I'll still be here, but I'm going to mute myself so I'm not disrupting this.
Thanks a lot, Peter, and yeah. So as Peter was saying, the catalyst, and we have to look for the company. We're very close to at GuiGui. We've now completed the program, and we have all the labs results very close to being in a position where we can release them, and that's the case as well with Batopilas. I know a few of you participated in a webinar we did a few weeks ago, and we were getting ready to put a press release on Batopilas. However, we decided to do a second assay of some of our drill results. And so we've sent them to the lab, but they're also just about ready. So keep watching for those two press releases. And then at Medicine Springs, we are working with the team there through our permitting, finding the drill targets. But it is our intention, and we do have the budget for a 7,000-meter drill campaign, probably towards the end of the summer or fall of 2022. And it's of course pending that we can get our permits in time, but it does look like something that we can achieve. So with that, I'd like to pass it to Steve. And we wanted to ask Peter to talk a little bit about how he met Steve, a little bit about the Adelita Project. But Peter, I see that this might not be the best time for you to do it. So perhaps we can save that for another time. And then maybe I can just share a little bit about how we
see.
Say that again.
We recognize that we think a lot of the same in terms of exploration. We've kept in touch and worked together at Sterling in Nevada, and then again at Stardust property for Sun Metals up in DC. And absolutely delighted that Steve has joined the Reyna Infinitum family and is driving the bus for Infinitum Copper. It's a delight, and really pleased to see that he's recognized the potential of the properties that we came up with, specifically Adelita, that my colleague Rafael Gallardo came up with down in Sonora, and delighted to see us moving forward aggressively with exploration. So Steve, over to you.
Well, thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it. And Peter, I certainly value the opportunity to work with you once again. Our careers started together back or our time together started back at the Silvertip Project in northern British Columbia. It was a long, long time ago in the mid 1990s. So it's been a great ride, and I'm hoping that this will just be the crescendo of our time together. Infinitum Copper is a new company. This is a very important time for us because our shares are going to resume trading on the TSX Venture Exchange tomorrow, March 16th, under the symbol INFI. Been a long time coming. The go public process for right now is very long and drawn out for a lot of companies because it's just so busy at the Venture Exchange. But we're finally through the process and able to get the handcuffs off, as they say, and we can start doing substantial exploration and continue to grow our business. So it's a great opportunity for us here. So we're going to talk today about the company and about our single asset, the Adelita Project, which is down in Sonora State. Again, a project that was held by Peter and his partner, Rafael Gallardo, for over 20 years at this point. I will also have forward-looking statements in my presentation, so I encourage you to go to the website and read this in detail if you have the time and the interest. So the thesis behind the company is we want to center this as a premier copper explorer. We're going to acquire a portfolio of high-quality assets, and I think we've done a great job of starting off with La Adelita. We want to work in safe, mining-friendly jurisdictions. I think there's a continuum of balance between places where you wake up in the morning and you still know that you own your asset. That's very important, and it can't be said in a lot of places in the world, unfortunately, these days. But you also want to be in a place where when you find something, you have a really good chance of being able to put it into production and create a mine. So we feel that Sonora State in Mexico is a great place for us to start. We really feel that this is exactly the type of jurisdiction that we want to be in. this business, more than most, is about people. And if you surround yourself with serially successful people, your chances of success are greatly increased. And I think that you'll see as we go through the presentation, we're affiliated with a lot of the same people that you just saw affiliated with Reyna Silver. We think it's a great team, and we're really encouraged that this is going to increase our chances of success as we move forward. And then finally, I'm going to talk about La Adelita, our project down in Mexico. We've got 6,500 hectares under control there. We think it's a district scale project that has a tremendous amount of potential. I just spent a week on the project. I just got back on Sunday. Very impressed with the team that we've got down there and the work that they're doing. I think it's a great system, and there's lots of potential for discovery down there. So let's talk about the copper market, though, before we get into it. Now, the theme of today's presentation is about the greening of our society and how we're using copper and silver to get away from those greenhouse gas producing industrial applications. And I think that a lot of people maybe don't realize how important Mexico is as a copper producer in the world. You can see it's number 10 or 11 in terms of world scale. And most of the copper in Mexico comes from Sonora State. So this really is a southern extension of that great copper belt that is seen up in Arizona. One of the mines up here, Cananea, is the 4th largest copper producer in the world. So this is really a great copper state. And again, in line with the theme for today, I thought that a good way of taking a look at the demand and supply side, on the demand aspect, we would take a look at how much copper is projected to be consumed by trying to get our economy off the greenhouse gases. And you can see the various themes that we've got here. A lot of it is, some things we're a little bit more familiar with, like the electrification of the vehicle fleets and so on and so forth. But there's all sorts of things that people don't talk about as much. The incredible work that's going to be needed on the industrial grid to be able to supply all of this electricity, and just the automation that's required. A lot of the buildings now that we see in our cities have a lot more automation to them. They turn off the lights and the air conditioning at night. All of that circuitry takes copper. So all of these things that you see in the list are copper based, and it's just going to add to the baseline that we've got for copper consumption. People are going to keep on building houses. They're going to keep making, the wiring for it and the copper pipes, but this is more demand that's going to be piled on top of that. Now, on the supply side, where's all this copper going to come from? Well, this is a discovery chart for the last 30 years. And you can see that for the first 20 years in this chart, we were averaging a little over 10 major discoveries per year. And if you take a look at the last decade, all of a sudden, the average has dropped to 1.6 discoveries a year. That's an order of magnitude drop in the number of discoveries. And that is the black line is actually the exploration budgets that have gone along with that. So at a time when we're actually spending a lot more money trying to find deposits, we're finding fewer of them. So this to me says there's going to be a tremendous amount of constraint on the supply side. And with increasing demand, that's just going to create a long-term bull market for copper. I'm very comfortable being in the copper space. I don't think the fundamentals, the long-term fundamentals, have ever been better than they are right now. So about the company, this is what our capital structure looks like as we go public tomorrow. We've got 38 million share float, and we'll actually have a market cap of about 15 million if we go public at 40 cents, which was the price of our last private round financing. You can see the share structure down here. We've got small institutional ownership. Minorum is the company that we actually optioned the property from, the La Adelita Project. So part of the deal that we did there was that we said, we'll give you enough shares that you'll be a 16% holder of our shares when we go public. And so that's where they're just over 6 million shares sit. Insiders own about 25% of the company and retail 38%. So we're in good hands. Now, as we go public tomorrow, even though we have 38 million shares outstanding, only about 11.6 million of those will be available for free trading. So it's going to be a tight market as we go public. It's enough shares out there that we're going to have a real market, but they'll be in short supply, and everybody likes to have a commodity that's in short supply. So here we are with a lot of the same faces that we saw in the Reyna Silver presentation. Core group of people are the same. And just having Peter and Doug involved in the company and the opportunities that brings to us in terms of access to other projects, I think is going to be extremely valuable, not just the guidance on the existing project that we have, but in terms of giving us the opportunity to acquire other projects and add them to the portfolio. And of course, Jorge has done a great job keeping all of the companies in the fold well-funded. He has tremendous depth into the capital markets, and so is a great contributor to the company as well. Look at the Adelita Project, where we're situated in northwestern Mexico. This is the two states of Sonora and Sinaloa. The project actually straddles the border between the two states. The bulk of it is in Sonora, and the access is from the north mostly. We're sitting right next door to the Alamo Dorado mine. So this is a mine that was operated until 2017 when it was exhausted and closed down. But we believe that that's part of the same mineral district that we've got hosted on our Adelita project. It's the only part of the district that we are aware of that isn't controlled by us. So we're okay that the part of the district that's already been mined out isn't on our property. We like the fact that the rest of it is still hosted here. We've got an option to earn 80% on the project from a norm, and once we fulfill our earning conditions, we'll go forward with the joint venture 80-20. And this is a detailed look at the zones of exploration that we have on the project. You can see that the mineralization is very widespread on the property. I was quite impressed when I was down there last week and saw how big this system is. You know, as I think about the times that I've spent with Peter over the years and his resonating messages to me that look for systems that are big, long-lived, multi-phased. And this certainly shows a lot of those characteristics. We see lots of evidence of cross-cutting episodes of alteration. We see a core of retrograde alteration in the Skarn zones that we're observing. All these things are indicators that this is a long-lived multi-phase system. Those are the ones that get big and rich. This is a cross-section through our main zone, Cerro Grande. So this is where most of the historic work has been done on the property to date. There hasn't been a lot of historic work done on the property, but the focus of the effort has been here at Cerro Grande. So this is a Skarn zone that is related to the intrusive. We've got high-grade copper, silver mineralization in this area. You can see the plan map on the right-hand side. The Skarn is represented by the red stippling, and there's been a handful of drill holes that have been drilled on it over the years. We know that it's at least 400 meters long in strike length, and we know it's at least 300 meters deep, but it hasn't been closed off in any direction. So it's still fully open for further exploration and expansion. You can see on the cross section here, this is the Skarn zone again in the red stipple, and it's a pretty vertical zone. It's broad and it's vertical. So these are great things to see in terms of thinking about potential future underground mine development. This is the perfect orientation for us. These are some of the best drill holes that were drilled on the property, and we can ignore the ones that have the double asterisks because those are drill holes that were drilled down the zone. The rest of them are expressed as true thicknesses, so across the zone. Now, these ones that were drilled down the zone are not without value completely. We actually have one area where there was 180 meters of drilling right down the Skarn zone that never left the Skarn. So that's pretty impressive that we can actually stay in the Skarn for that long. So that's again one of those hallmark indicators that this is a fairly large system. Now the grades are very impressive here. You can see the copper equivalent grades when you add in not only the copper mineralization, but also the substantial silver grades that go along with that. You get a good copper equivalent grade. A lot of the grades are up over 2%. So these are the kind of grades that are very encouraging. And I'd spoken about how the amount of work that's been done on the property is relatively limited. So you can see the total drilling campaigns over the years, there's less than 7,300 meters of drilling in total on the property. So really the surface has just barely been scratched on this. This year, we plan to do over 9,000 meters of diamond drilling on the property. So we'll more than double the amount of work that has been done on the property to date in this year's campaign. And this is a look at the Cerro Grande zone. You can see the red stipple again represents where the Skarn mineralization comes down this north face of the mountain, goes undercover to the north, so we don't know exactly where the final extent of this is, and it continues on to the south as well. There's a small adit up in this area here where there was some high-grade ore was followed into the hillside. The adit's about 40 meters long. I actually walked to the end of that adit last week when I was down on the property, and it's quite small. So there's been no sub-level development, no underground drilling or anything like that. So the amount of work that's been done here is relatively limited. One of the things that we want to do this season, and we're actually starting on Thursday with a magnetotelluric survey. So magnetotellurics is a geophysical technique that is particularly effective in these types of systems where you can actually detect metal bodies below surface. And that'll help guide our drilling, hopefully, into areas that we'll be able to define extensions to the mineralization. Now, this is Peter's model once again. So we're taking a look at the same type of model that's being used on Reyna Silver's property. We got an intrusive core, and as those hot acidic fluids, metal-laden fluids, work their way out into the surrounding rocks, if those rocks happen to be limestone, like you see here in blue, there's a chemical reaction that causes the precipitation of this high-grade mineralization. And we're at Adelita, we're right into the center part of this system. We've got lots of the high-grade copper, silver that's found in the Skarn section of this system in the model, and we're finding it over a fairly large geographic area, which is a good sign. Now, we also heard Peter talking about hub and spoke geometry earlier, and that's exactly what we believe we have here. This is Mesquital, which is the main hot intrusive source on the property. And then if you follow the spokes out into these different zones, these are all fractures or plumbing systems where the hot acidic fluids would lead out into farther out into the extremities of the property and deposit the metallic mineralization as they go along. So there's Cerro Grande, not too far away from the center hub. And another area that we're doing a lot of work in right now is Las Trancas. And we're seeing a lot of mineralization down in this area. We'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that. Here's some examples of other types of other deposits that have this type of geometry. And some of them, of course, like Bingham Canyon, one of the most spectacular deposits on the face of the planet, and Leadville, very spectacular mineralization that's found in the same environment. So this is what we've got planned for this year in 2022. We've had this ongoing mapping, prospecting, and trenching. A lot of sampling has been taken back starting in October. So we've got some results that are coming back on that. We should be able to release those fairly soon. The trenching program started a little bit later. So some of those results, we've got to wait for a while to get back from the lab. There's still quite a significant backup in the lab. We're going to be embarking on our magnetotelluric survey starting later this week. The diamond drill has already arrived on site, which was nice. Last weekend, we actually had the drilling crews or the drill show up. The crews should arrive within the next 10 days, and they'll start drilling in our phase 1 3,000 meter program. Now, the 3,000 meter program I've got described here, this is based on some of the historic targeting that was done on the property. It will follow immediately into a 6,000 meter program. The 6,000 meter program is going to be targeting both follow-up from phase 1 and also some of the anomalies that come out of the geophysics, the trenching, and surface sampling. So in total, we'll have 9,000 meters. We'll start in late March, and we'll be able to work into the rainy season down here. It'll take us well into summer to complete that program. So here are some of the upcoming catalysts. Of course, a big catalyst for us will be starting trading tomorrow. It's an exciting time for us. And then as we go forward from there, we're going to have a very rich news flow. We're going to be able to talk about the results of the sampling that we've done, the mapping, the trenching, and discoveries that come out of that. The geophysics, I'm looking very forward to seeing the results of our MT survey and trying to define some targets out of that. Drilling will go on starting in March, and it'll go on until it's completed. And then, of course, all the time, we're kicking tires, looking for other opportunities. And I have a feeling that we'll be able to add other projects to the portfolio that will complement Adelita. Hopefully we'll add projects that are going to have a field season that's a little different than the one down in Mexico, and we'll be able to maintain 12 months out of the year news flow and keep several irons in the fire, as they say. So once again, we're starting off with a great asset in Adelita. We're going to focus our efforts on safe, mining-friendly jurisdictions. We've got a world-class team. As we continue to build out our portfolio, we'll add to that team and make sure that we've got the right people involved in the company. And starting off with Adelita is just I think a rare opportunity for us. The cupboard is bare in terms of copper exploration projects. There's not a lot of good early stage copper exploration projects out there, and I think that Adelita provides a great opportunity for us to have some discovery success and maybe make a bit of a splash in this sector in the market. So that's the presentation. We should go to questions from the audience.
Thank you, Steve, for the presentation. Yes, now we will move to the Q&A session for both companies. Since we have just 8 minutes left, we can keep it short. So first question for Reyna Silver. What is the feasibility of Reyna marketing native silver specimens from Batopilas?
Yeah, I know it's a question that I get asked quite a bit. Of course, our main purpose as a public company is exploration. However, obviously, Peter and Lauren, probably two great experts in mineral specimens. So if you want to, could always send me a message, and I'll send you maybe I'll send you Lauren's contact, and she might be able to help you see where you can find them. But it's actually not a bad idea, but probably not one that we can pursue through Reyna Silver, given our focus is on exploration. But they're beautiful, those specimens. I have one in the office that we found from the last campaign, and I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the other ones. And it does speak about how unique Batopilas is. For those of you who don't know, what native silver is, it's basically silver that's in free milling form. The old timers, the way they were able to process it was basically just using gravity and crushing with minimum chemical processing. So it is a very unique deposit, and one that's known worldwide because of its specimens. I don't know if Lauren or Peter have anything to add.
Of course, the specimens are famous, and we're looking forward to potentially doing something with specimens regarding social media. So keep an eye out on our social media. See what's coming up with that.
Thank you. And then we received another question for Infinitum Copper. What's the overall company strategy? You mentioned that you can consider adding a couple of properties, but what is the overall company strategy?
Well, we want to be a premier copper explorer, and we've got a great opportunity with Adelita, but I think that it makes sense that we would have a portfolio of projects that would give us opportunity to try other jurisdictions as well, and make sure that we continually have something immediately in front of us in terms of the ability to explore and discover. So I like the idea of getting somewhere between 4 and 6 projects in the portfolio, but that certainly doesn't detract from the potential that we've got immediately in front of us right now at Adelita.
And the next question is also for Infinitum. Where do you see the upside potential for investors?
Discovery through exploration. I mean, this is one of the great things in our economy is, you take a look at a lot of the economy is just recirculation of money from elsewhere. But in exploration, we actually have the opportunity to truly create value. And I think that if we start out with a project like Adelita, where there's a lot of potential, but there's not a lot defined there in terms of mineralization. If we do enough exploration there, and if there's something to define, and we actually bring that to the light of day, then there's some real value created there. And I think this is why people love the mining exploration market, is because of that opportunity.
And the next question is also for you, Steve. What is the timeline for production of copper?
Well, we've got a lot of exploration work to do before we can start talking about production. But, it's one of the things that's kind of interesting about working in Mexico is it is one of those jurisdictions, I believe, where when you do find something, the timeline can be relatively short to getting into production. And, the small adit that we showed on La Adelita already has had production from it. So it was a small adit that was driven in 40 meters. The guys hand cobbed the high grade copper mineralization that was found in there, and they put it into pickup trucks and took it off to a custom milling facility, is my understanding, and we're able to get the process going quickly. So hopefully our future production there, if it happens, would be a little bit larger scale than that. But you know, that's ultimately our goal, is to find something that could be turned into a mine.
Thank you. That's the end of the Q&A session. I would like to thank everyone who joined us today for the live webinar with two companies, and also our speakers, Dr. Peter Magall, Jorge, and Steve. So have a nice day and see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you attending.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.